In 1977, a small factory in Colvin, Leicester got to work on something that would change the lives of countless people. Little did they realise that people were still caring enough 40 years later to sit and listen to a guy waffle on about that product. This is the Star Wars Toy Podcast.
Hello there. Yes, this is the Star Wars Toy Podcast. It's episode 10, and I am Darth Mark. I am afraid this episode is going to be quite short, and I'll be upfront with you. It's because the data package on LipSync, with the service that I use to put this podcast out, is a bit short. It doesn't renew till the end of the month, so yes, I could do with a few people just jumping onto Patreon, becoming patrons for this podcast, so I could up that limit. To be honest with you, I think it's because we had the interview at the beginning of the month went a bit over. I will be having half an hour weekly podcasts for the foreseeable future, but I have been thinking about doing a daily podcast. Maybe if I do get this data limit upped, if I get a few people paying a couple of dollars a month, maybe £1 a month or whatever, I can put in place my thoughts on putting about 10-minute daily modern podcast, just the modern news, and then having this as just a vintage weekly podcast. If that's an idea you like the sound of, let me know. You can email me, blueharvesttoys@gmail.com. But if you want to head over to Patreon, it's www.patreon.com/blueharvest, and I'll put those in the show notes, so you can there will be links in the show notes, so you can just go straight to that and have a look at it, because I'm going to put a few more things on there. Once I get a few patrons on there, there will be a lot of content put on there. I've recently had some good news on the money front, but I don't want to divulge it as before it gets confirmed, and you will hear it before I tell you anyway. So those daily podcasts may be going through. It's all about the ability to up that data limit on LipSync. So I've waffled on a bit too much there. We're nearly 2.5 minutes into this podcast, and I'm trying to keep it short. So what I'm going to do this week, I'm not going to do the Star Wars tracker. I'll probably do a double one next week. What I'm going to talk about today is the state. Well, it's going to be a bit of a rant about the state of the collecting community and what's going on in collecting. And of course, Star Wars collecting, because this is a Star Wars collecting podcast. And I'm going to let you have my thoughts on Hasbro's Haslab. I think you can guess what I think about that.
Penny for your thoughts.
I've been thinking about this topic for quite a long time, really. Yes, I do lay in bed at night thinking about topics for this podcast. I do plan these, you know. And this is a topic that's always on my mind. I was talking about it with the other collectors. But I'm just going to start off with a little article I found. I get Google alerts every day on Star Wars toys, and it's entitled, "No, Gen Z is not killing Star Wars. Having already killed off everything from American cheese to sex, millennials taking a well-earned breather, stepped aside for a spell, and relegated day-to-day oversight of the slaughter to their children. If a recent analysis of Disney's quarterly earnings is any indication, among the first victims of Gen X are Wookiees, droids, the Jedi, and a certain high-ranking space cephalopod. The kids aren't interested in the whole Star Wars thing, and this generational apathy is bringing Disney to its knees. That is one hell of a take, with apologies to the little green guy who lives in the swamp. Nonsense, that is. While investors by all means should continue to keep an eye on the performance of Disney's interstellar franchise, it's a bit of a reach to suggest that the dip in the theme park attendances signals the disenchantment of all things Star Wars. Yes, attendances at Disney's domestic parks was down 3% in the quarter, a disappointing result given that the period couldn't coincide with the opening of the Star Wars Galaxy's Edge park at Disneyland in Anaheim, California. But it's worth noting that visitors to the Galactic Edition only began spinning the turnstiles in May 31st. In other words, the turnout for the entire quarter is being assessed on just 31 days of ticket sales. Speaking to analysts during the company's Tuesday afternoon earnings call, Disney chairman and CEO, Bob Iger, said a number of factors likely contributed to the muted response in Galaxy's Edge. Consumer perceptions may have played a role in dampening the first month of foot traffic. There was tremendous concern in the marketplace that there was going to be a huge crowding when we opened Galaxy's Edge, Iger said, and so some people stayed away just because they expected that it would not be a great guest experience. Iger also noted that would-be visitors may have been discouraged by increasing the cost of a Disneyland Day Pass, a hike compounded by those opportunist local innkeepers who jacked up their room rates when Galaxy's Edge opened its doors. He went on to add that one of the Galaxy's Edge main attractions, the mammoth Rise of the Resistance, won't be up and running until January 2020. By the time Rise of the Resistance is operational, the full Galaxy's Edge experience will have blasted off at Walt Disney World in Orlando. The first stage of the Orlando launch was set in for August 29th. Anticipation of Florida Park's next big attraction also may have had a negative impact on the resorts division. Per Iger, survey data suggests that guests are deferring visitation until after Star Wars Galaxy's Edge opens in the Sunshine State. Iger went on to say that among these who had visited the Anaheim Galaxy's Edge, guest satisfaction and interest in the attractions had been extremely high. In other words, Disney watchers may want to wait until a bit more data is in before they go all in on the C-3PO anxiety mode. Looking ahead, we anticipate strong segment operating income growth driven by the benefit from a full quarter of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge at Disneyland, Iger said. And so long term, and look, we build those things for the long term. We have no concerns whatsoever. Parks revenue was up 7% in the quarter to $6.58 billion, making it Disney's second biggest earner behind only the media networks. Enhanced by the recent additions of the FX Networks properties and a 13% spike in ad sales at ESPN, revenue in all the broadcasting and cable networks and units soared 21% to $6.71 billion. The state of Galaxy's Edge aside, a glance at recent box office figures should dispel a half-formed notion that younger Americans are little interested in the Star Wars phenomena. For 3 consecutive years, offshoots of the original 1977 film have been the top grossing theatricals in the US. Released in 2015, The Star Wars Force Awakens vacuumed up $936.7 million, making it the nation's all-time highest grossing film. The first installment of the new Star Wars trilogy was so popular it was surpassed by the previous record holder, James Cameron's Avatar, in a mere 20 days. During the Force Awakens run, Hasbro sold $494 million in Star Wars toys and games. While sales of merchandise tied in with the 2017 follow-up, Star Wars Last Jedi, didn't meet Hasbro's expectations, the company said the decline from one film to the next likely was a function of sheer glut. At the time of the Last Jedi release, the toy line faced stiff competition from other members of the Hasbro partner brand unit, including Marvel, Thor Ragnarok, and Disney Frozen. The year after, The Force Awakens revitalised the Star Wars mythos. The standalone movies Rogue One, A Star Wars Story, beat all comers with $532.2 million in box office sales, while The Last Jedi topped the 2017 charts with its $620.2 million haul. For its worth, The Last Jedi ranks in the 9th biggest US film release of all time, while Rogue One has claimed the number 12 spot. Of the 4 Star Wars films released since George Lucas sold the property to Disney, only one failed to resonate with moviegoers, although it was the 12th biggest ticket of 2018. Solo: A Star Wars Story fell well shy of expectations, grossing $213.8 million in statewide sales, or well under its $275 million production budget. Disney will look to put any talk about Star Wars waning popularity in a carbon deep freeze as Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker opens on December 20th. The conclusion to the Star Wars saga comes at the tail end of the year, in which Disney and its stable of franchises have dominated the movie business. As for the top 5 films are Mouse House releases. Now that article might be a bit heavy and lacking in anything relating to Star Wars toys. I just thought it was important to get a handle on what's actually happening in the Star Wars world and the collecting world. The fact is, I've always thought it was important to get younger people in on our hobby, and not to be snobs about it. Collecting is a generational thing. It changes from generation to generation. It's all down to nostalgia, and you'll find the older generation will collect the train sets, Tinplate and Meccano, things like that. Later you'll have Action Man, and then down to Star Wars collectibles. Then it goes on to Turtles, Transformers, Ghostbusters, you name it. But to be honest with you, what has come after that? Now, Lego have always been there, and they will always be there, but that's not really a collectible item, I don't think. And I very much doubt that we're going to get kids actually collecting toys anymore. Do they actually play with them after a certain age? Toy manufacturers now have to compete with games, TV, all kinds of things. It's like kids don't even read these days, so they're not going to play with plastic toys. And it all boils down to imagination. Back in when I was playing with my toys, you could only see Star Wars at the movies, at the pictures. You'd go see it, and you'd go home, and you'd get the toys, and you'd act out those scenes with your toys. You had imagination. You made new stories. We always made new stories after Star Wars. That's all we had. These days, you can watch a whole series in a day. You can watch movies over and over again, which is a good thing. Yes, it's a good thing. But we need to get imagination back into these kids and to start playing again and to start collecting. Hasbro have started to bring out some 5-inch figures. They shouldn't be out yet, but the Junkman found some of them. I don't know if somebody else found them, and the Junkman put them out there of the Kylo Ren and a Jet Trooper, I think it was. And the packaging and the figures themselves looked very infantile. Don't get me wrong, they're not like the preschool figures you see in the toy stores, littering the toy stores. They're a bit more like the toy box figures that Disney did. They seem to be going back to basics with these figures, which is a good thing. You need the 5-point articulation that we used to have. Those were proper toys, not like the 3 3/4 inch we get now. They're fully articulated. You try and play with those, they'll just fall apart. But to be honest with you, Hasbro need to do a lot more to make these toys again. They're putting a lot into the Black Series, which is for collectors, which is a good thing. We're all collectors, and I do collect the Black Series, so yeah, it's a good thing, but I do believe they have the fingers in too many pies, to be honest with you, with these Star Wars figures. What have we got? They've got the Vintage Collection, the Black Series, the 3 3/4, and the Retro Collection that has been re-released, and there are rumours that there's going to be even more. And then you've got these, we'll call them toy box figures. Now, it's still not sure if they will still have the license come next year. Mattel might have it, but then again, it might be spread out between licensees. So I don't think the onus is on Hasbro to get kids to start playing again. I mean, it is in their best interests for kids to start playing again. Perhaps Toys R Us could reopen. I'm going to keep on the Hasbro theme and go on to, the things I've seen in the stores these past couple of weeks, especially the Entertainer, who are just selling everything off. Things I've not even seen before. I mean, the Black Series, Han Solo, with Minox, I think it is. I've never even seen it. I've never even heard of it before, and they're selling it for £30. The Kylo Throne Room, which I looked for forever. I had the Snoke Throne Room with Throne, and I've sold it because I never could find the Kylo, and now they've got the Kylo for £20. They've got the Rey training as well. I mean, they've got everything there that you. I got bags full. I'll be honest with you. I got a couple of bags full because I put videos up on my YouTube channel, and I didn't spend a fortune at all. They're even selling some of the Vintage Collection figures. Have not been out that long for £5 when they're £15 down the road at Forbidden Planet. It's shocking to me how this is actually happening. Nobody's going to buy any new figures unless they're really special figures like, say, Dr. Aphra or something like that. They're not going to buy them full price anymore. They're going to wait just a few, a couple of months even, and get them a lot cheaper. They were coming out at Home Bargains and Quality Save and wherever, Pound Land or whatever, but now they're getting into the toy stores as well. The Entertainer is a big toy store in the UK, and they've got a whole section full of marked down Star Wars toys. Even the Disney shop has nothing Star Wars related anymore, and whatever's there, they're selling that off as well. I got the Padme Amidala Attack of the Clones Black Series for £10, and that's the first time I've seen that figure. Look, I know we've not got the Toys R Us anymore. We've got Smiths and, as I said, Entertainer. They're not getting. I don't know if the Entertainer will actually get anything new in. When it's Triple Force Friday, what's going to happen then? Who's going to get these toys? Is anyone at all? Or are we just going to have to wait until they get marked down at Entertainer? I was talking to a collector the other day about Hasbro's distribution, and he did say the supermarkets only order new cases when the pegs become empty. Now, as we know, we've got pegs full of Rose, Rey, Jin. All seems to be the lady characters, which they've never ever sold well. Even Princess Leia back in the day didn't sell well. I mean, I'm all for the lady characters in Star Wars and any program, any series, Marvel, anything. But the figures never sell because they are essentially a boy's toy. Star Wars have always been a boy's toy, and the lady figures never sell. That's not me being sexist at all. If you watch my YouTube channel, you know I have a lady shelf in my flat full of Princess Leia, Rey, Kira, Ahsoka, Aphra, all the ladies. I love them, but the kids don't play with them. Look at the Forces of Destiny dolls. They are excellent, and now they are getting sold off very cheaply. I got the Luke one because I'm a Luke Bespin collector, so I got the Luke one. I've had Rey before, Princess Leia before, and I'm actually looking to get the Princess Leia Hoth one because I've got my Princess Leia Hoth hot toys, and she's quickly becoming a focus for me. So yeah, buy it. But the boys won't play with them. Boys just don't want girl figures. Perhaps it's the movie maker's fault because we're getting more and more women characters in these movies, so you're going to have women figures. So maybe it's down to that, but Hasbro need to start distributing these cases properly. Put a correct level mix of characters in each case. They have been known to change the case quantities. I know the 40th anniversary figures cases, they changed pretty quickly when certain ones weren't getting sold and certain ones were running out and shooting up in value. So that's rant over on that one. But now I'm going to talk about something else that I'm not going to rant about. I'm just going to tell you my thoughts on. I'm just going to give you this little article. It is a couple of weeks old, and I know the Cookie Monster has failed, so I'll just read through it. With Cookie Monster nearing the finish line, only a little more than 6 days are left, it's time to take another look at this year's 2 Haslab projects. Yes, Cookie Monster didn't make it, unfortunately. Let's cut to the chase, they are not looking good right now. On August the 1st, that was 18 days ago. It wasn't, it was so many days ago, but from this point of view of this article, and this time Unicron added 562 backers, and that is 31 backers per day, and the Cookie Monster added 94 backers, with a little more than 5 backers per day. The Cookie Monster needs a miracle, and less than 7 days left of the project. Cookie Monster only has 16.23% of the required backers, so unless all the Muppet fans are patiently waiting to the final hour, this Haslab project is probably dead, and it is. It has been pointed out that the sale badge reached its final goal 3 days before the deadline, and then added a couple of extra thousand backers for the last 72 hours. So in theory, an army of Cookie Monsters fans could back the plush toy in the next final few days. But why wait so long? I would say the badge added so many backers only because it reached its funding goal. Many had probably waited to see if the badge will get made at all. Maybe just spare the disappointment of backing something that won't get made. If that is so, then the Muppet fans need to come out of hiding and back the project now, or it will be too late. It's not impossible, but each passing day is getting more and more likely. Maybe a $300 plush toy was not Hasbro's best idea for a Haslab project. You don't say. Unicron is at almost 34% with almost 2 weeks to go, and it's not hopeless. It might just get made, but it may fail as well. Too early to call. But reaching 8,000 backers is certainly an ambitious goal. In a previous article, comment section, it was suggested that Hasbro had no Haslab project this year because they may abandon the license. A summer 2019 Haslab project may have shipped when the license had already expired. As far as we know, the license expires in the late 2020. It's not entirely clear if the license expires in December 31st or a few weeks before the year is over. As stated in the previous Haslab article, potentially failing 2019 projects should only prove Haslab and Disney that the Star Wars fan community is still strong. At least strong enough to successfully fund a $500 toy. The decline of toy sales is not the fault of the fans, or proof that the fans abandoned Star Wars toys. The hard question needs to be asked if Disney let Hasbro make the right toys, and the entertainment that drives toys sales spoke to the target demographic that buys toys. Maybe repacking Jin, Finn, Cassian, repacking previous release 3.57-inch Black Series figures in the Vintage Collection, and making figures such as Rose, Holdo, and a few others, having a villain in a movie that wears a bathrobe and slippers, and comes with zero accessories as an action figure, has brought us to where we are now. Just what I mentioned before. Fact is that the figures themselves have never been better. Both the Vintage Collection and the Black Series are the best, and with a few exceptions and paint app errors, than they have ever been. Hasbro is continually improving the figures, but with more casual collectors seem to have lost interest altogether, sales have declined by roughly 2/3 when compared to 2015. Disney is to think hard why toys based on Marvel see strong sales, and toys based on Star Wars are regularly finds at Ollie's, Ross's and dollar stores, and Entertainer. Some Marvel toys end up there as well, but it seems Star Wars toys end up in the clearance aisles in droves. But the same fan community also backed a $500 toy successfully. Something the Transformer community still has to prove. And the Muppet fans probably won't. Maybe Star Wars can still be the goose that lays the golden egg if the diet you'll feed is a goose is the right one. So there you go, that was a very interesting article and it proves a lot of my points there. I don't think Haslab is generally a good idea. A big toy company should make toys whatever. It should be their risk. Asking people to pay for something that hasn't been made yet is quite dodgy, really. It is the society these days. A lot of things people put out there that it's a good thing if they're a little company or that they're just like a single person and they've got an idea and they want to get it made. Like if they want to write a book or they want to make a film or they want to invent something, it's a good idea for them. But for a big toy company like Hasbro, not so much. I would like to hear your thoughts on all this. Maybe you'd like to send me a little audio clip of what you want to get across, or even email me, I'll read it out. That's blueharvesttoys@gmail.com, and again I will put everything in the show notes. So it's gone on a bit longer than I actually planned, but I think I got my point across. I do try to be educational, if not as entertaining as I could be. I just think it's a serious subject, and I want there to be a future for Star Wars toys. So that'll just about wrap it up for this week. I hope you have a great weekend. Get out there, get to entertain and buy some nice Star Wars toys, and let me know what you find. So until then, may the toys be with you.
Once told me the world is sharpest in the shed. She was looking
Kind of dumb.
with her gander in the shed. Up and down on her forehead. Well, the deer start coming and they don't stop coming. Head to the rules and hit the ground running. Didn't make sense not to live for fun. Your brain gets smart, but your head hurts go. So much to do, so much to see. So
What's wrong?
with taking in the back streets. You'll never know if you don't go. You'll never shine.
If you don't
Low. Hey, now you're an
all-star.
get your game right. Car, babe. Now you're a rock star.
Get the
Showtime. Get paid. And all that glitters is gold. Burning shooting stars. Break